I was in the front row, and President Trump had just announced me and said he was going to have me come up on the stage, and said, well, wait a minute. And then there were a number of shots, I think probably 7 or 8 shots.
That was Pennsylvania Republican Senate nominee David McCormick, who was sitting behind Donald Trump at the rally yesterday. He joins us now. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. McCormick. Just expand on what you were just saying from last night's special. What did you see happen? What did you hear? When did you realize what was going on?
Well, as I said, I was sitting right in the front row, and the shots went off, and it was pretty clear quickly. It was a huge rally. It was lots of upbeat energy. It was pretty quickly this was a series of shots, and the president went down immediately, and the Secret Service jumped on top of him, and then he got up, and you saw the pictures you're now seeing on TV where his fist came out, and in sort of a measure of, I think, defiance and reassurance and leadership, he really reassured people that he was okay. But at the same time, over my shoulder, it became clear that someone else had been hit. And sadly, an innocent bystander was knocked over, and it was clear that he was very, very injured and bleeding very badly. And so there were sort of two things going on at the same time, one to my left and one to my right. And the president was taken off the stage, and there was a real confusion of what was going on, whether there were multiple shooters, whether the shooting was done, and really a sad day. The president, an inch difference and the president would have been dead. It was a very scary moment.
You've been out campaigning for months. How have you experienced this toxic environment that we were just talking about with John Cohen, the counterterrorism specialist?
I mostly haven't, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously, we have two very conflicting visions of where to take the country, the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party, and President Biden versus President Trump. And so there's a real conflict of ideas. But for the most part, I don't hear extreme rhetoric. And obviously, extreme rhetoric has no place in politics. And, as a father of 6 daughters, it's scary. I spent my night talking to my daughters and reassuring them that their dad's going to be okay, even though he's decided to try to run for public office and serve his country. So this is something that's unacceptable in political life, and it's unacceptable wherever it comes from, and so we have to push back on it. And certainly, it's not hard to imagine that some of the extreme rhetoric we see contributed to the attempt on President Trump and Steve Scalise and some of these other horrible tragedies that happened. Paul Pelosi. This is unacceptable in American political life, and we need to come together and agree on that.
Yeah, and that your message is being echoed. It was echoed by Speaker Johnson this morning. It was echoed by President Biden. Former President Trump said we have to come together as well. But we've also seen that several top Republicans are also seeking to blame Democrats for this. How do we take the temperature down right now?
Well, I think we first of all have to recognize that we do have a real conflict of ideas. That's okay. Our country is faced with very significant choices, and running for office, I believe that we're going in the wrong direction. And so I'm making the case as aggressively as I can that we need to go in a different direction. That's different than attacking people. That's different than breaking down people. That's different than threatening violence. And so we need to embrace conflict of ideas, conflict in the direction of our country that needs to be addressed at the ballot box. But we don't need to resort and can't resort to violence as a way of promoting political agendas. And I think that certainly the environment contributed, I think, to these acts of violence that we're seeing, not just last night, but others. And it needs to be dialed back across the board.
David McCormick, thanks for your time this morning.